You couldn't have lost too many games in high school.
So I played 150 games for Saints first team, and I lost 11 in this team, trying to make my way through the journey.
But you still dead set you want to become a professional cricketer at this
100%.
So you're not just one of those where I'm good, I'm going to be around. No, you still thinking this is my career?
This is my career, and I'm trying to break into. Last year was the first year during the Bangladesh Premier League. When I was there, I got a call saying, "Listen, there's a guy's injured in the SA20. Can you make it?" I've been a massive person of like team success is more important than me, and to have.
But if you're scoring hundreds, helps the team quite a lot.
No, I know, I do get that. People in South Africa understand that. It's like my biggest thing is like, if you're doing a job and you get another offer from another company,
exactly,
to pay you more money for the same job, would you take it?
Because I mean, like South Africa can put out a Nanje Burger, Anton Nakia and KJ Bada, and the slowest bowler will be hitting 146, 147. You know, there's not a lot of Irish bowlers that are going to hit 140. Before we wrap up, I had to ask you, are you aware that you have currently got, I think, the 7th most ODI innings without a duck? Hello and welcome back to the Forever Sports podcast. A bit of a different guest today, usually very rugby related, but we're going to throw into a bit of cricket, and I'm joined by Curtis Campher, who is a Safa, but now playing obviously for Ireland. And I'm very interested to sort of hear about that whole sort of transition stuff. But first of all, Curtis, thank you very much for giving us your time. You kind of seem to have brought the Irish weather down to Johannesburg. It's been nice and cold and rainy the last few days, but how's it been being back for a few days?
No, it's been really good. Thank you for having me. Nice to be home and see my family. But yeah, it's typical, isn't it? That we have a lot like that luck of saying that wherever we go, we bring the rain.
Yeah.
And it's funny, we've been to places like Dubai and there's been flooding, and during the World Cup in America, there was like a monsoon there, whatever they call it, tropical cyclone, and it rained non-stop for like 4 or 5 days. So we haven't had the best weather.
But the weather god's basically saying, listen, you guys are Irish, we're never supposed to play cricket.
Yeah, exactly, literally. So I was like, oh, it's going to be great. I'll come to South Africa, 10 days, training. My brother's telling me how hot it is. Like, oh, it's close to 40 degrees.
We have had heat waves.
Yeah, he's like, oh, geez, it's so hot. And I was like, oh, I can't wait for this. Like, this is exactly what I need. And I get you, and it's 13 degrees, and I haven't packed a jersey, and it's it's terrible.
Right, so before we get into sort of the incident, let's go right back to the beginning. So school and stuff like that, obviously high school Saints, so the prep school Saints as well. Where did you?
No, I went to prep school at St. Peter's.
Okay.
Yeah, so St. Peter's, and then went over and followed my brother to Saints.
Right, okay, and then sort of what sort of levels were you playing? I mean, junior level. I mean, were you playing sort of regionals? What were some of the teams and stuff like that?
So when I was 13, I played for the Lions under 13, and then it goes 15s, 17s, 19s, and I played under 15 Bs when I was 14, and then played 15 As when I was 15, and then I played 17 Bs when I was 16, 17 As when I was 17, and then 19s for the last year, and then played S under 19 for one trip before the World Cup, the under 19 World Cup, and then unfortunately got left out for the World Cup in New Zealand, and then played the tour after that, and was fortunate enough to go to England and played the one-day series against England there, which was really cool. It's got to play against like guys I play against now on the international stage, of like Tom Banton, so it's really cool to have those friendships. And like how bridge those in the beginning, you know. So it's really cool.
It's an interesting concept because a lot of these guys, you're sort of if you've played age group, you know, even at provincial, you must be sort of playing similar guys at the end of every year, sort of when it comes to like the provincial tournaments and stuff like that. Obviously, going to Saints, for anyone that doesn't know, Stallions is the current gold mine of South African cricket. I think there were 3 Saints boys in the South African Test team at the moment. So, I mean, you go to Saints, which is a very good cricketing school. When do you start realizing? Is there like a day or a moment where you start playing and you suddenly realize, like, I'm pretty good in a good team. I'm actually like a different level type of thing. Like, when does that sort of start clicking that actually I'm really good at this?
I think in different stages of my career, it's happened at different times. I was quite a good hockey player at the same time, and I actually loved hockey more than cricket. So I was playing age group stuff for that too, and I was playing in the first team cricket team with guys. Like now, looking at it, there's 4 internationals and 5 domestic players. So out of a team of 11, 9 guys have played international cricket or domestic cricket.
Because you must have been around the sort of the Ryan Rickletons.
Yeah, so I played with like So like my age is 1D, Josh Richards.
Yeah.
And then above me is Vian Mulder, Ryan Rickleton, Josh Richards. You know, so like Ricardo Vasconcelos plays as Brandon Glover. So you have guys that are playing county and international cricket too. So the sides were pretty stacked, to be honest. Cam Shackleton a year below me.
You couldn't have lost too many games in high school.
So I played 150 games for Saints first team, and I lost 11. Yeah, so it was...
I can't imagine the coach must have been too chuffed when you guys ever did lose. Or was it one of
No,
those things because you banked so many, like, oh, I suppose we
no, I think we prided ourselves so much on that record.
Yeah.
It was crazy. We lost a few games we shouldn't have lost. But yeah, no, having won 3 T20 schools Coca-Cola things was our pride and joy.
Yeah.
So that was really cool. But yeah, I loved my high school career. It was probably like the best time. I think you take for granted the school sport in South Africa is playing with a bunch of your mates at, in my opinion, one of the highest levels, and so intense. And I really loved that. And fortunate enough, because I went to Saints, when I went through the age groups of provincial cricket, I was playing with my mates too. Yeah. You know, we'd have 4 or 5 guys.
That's also the thing.
The whole time.
In the provincial
Whereas
sides.
like other guys, if you go to a different school, you might have 1 or 2, or you might be the only person, and then you're building friendships, and you meet new people, which is really cool. But obviously with Saints, you have that core group of guys the whole time traveling and doing the same thing. The parents, same thing, traveling to tournaments and tours. So that was really cool. And like my parents were probably heartbroken when I eventually moved over, and when I went to the Tucks for university cricket. It's not the same, you know. Club cricket parents don't come watch, and there's no vibe. It's just more about like individual and stuff. So so I really enjoyed my time at Tucks. That was just following my high school career. I had an option to either stay at UJ and the Lions or move to Tucks, and I thought that I've got to test myself in a different environment, in a high environment, in my opinion. And I knew that the degree I'd get at Tucks would be far superior, and the training and the level of how good Tucks' system is so good.
Well, you got the CSA Academy of Excellence there, so...
Yeah, exactly, yeah. So that was kind of my next step, and I was there for 2.5 years playing, and then basically what happened was when I was in matric, the Irish team came across and trained at Saints, and our director of sports spoke to their head coach and said, listen, we've got a guy in matric, he's got an Irish passport, would you mind just having a look at him and seeing... let him come train with you during school. I was like, 1, I get him to school. This is great.
This is fantastic. Yeah.
And 2, like get a train against an international opposition. So I did that, and it was nice just to meet a few guys. And funnily enough, I play with a few of them now too, which is crazy. But I didn't know them then. And then a few years go by, and it wasn't like my intention fully to be like, right, I'm moving over. And I was offered same thing. Ireland came over for the Tri Series in 2015 against South Africa and Australia, and they were training at Tucks and playing. And Kruger van Wyk messaged Graham Ford and said, listen, I've got a guy in our system, he's got an Irish passport, would you mind if he plays against you guys and see how he does? And I said, no, perfect.
At that time, were you still, in your perspective, were you still trying to like Tucks, Titans?
100%, yeah.
Eventually
I wasn't even, like, it sounds crazy, like in the Tucks team, you had like guys like Michael Pretorius, Corbin Bosch, Neil Brunt, like these guys have played for the Proteas or dominating Titans cricket, you know, and the all-rounders was like Don Ferreira was there, you have Rowan de Swart, you know, these guys are like quality cricketers, and I'm just in this team trying to make my way through the journey.
But you still dead set you want to become a professional cricketer at this
100%,
stage. Not just one of those where I'm good, I'm going to be around, you still thinking this is my career?
This is my career, and I'm trying to break into the Northerns. And around that time I did quite nicely, and I played that warm-up game, and I got, I think, 48 or 50 and I got out in the last over, and I got like maybe 3 wickets somehow. And then Graham Ford, the head coach, said to me, listen, can you move over right now? And I said to him, listen, I can't. I need to finish my studies, and I want to just keep playing here. I said, I'm happy to come over in the winter and play some club cricket and get my feet going. So I was meant to go that year to Ireland.
Second year? You were
second year. So that's I was meant to go to Ireland and play club cricket. But sadly I hurt my knee, and that wasn't happening. So I've been in club cricket for that year. And the third year was COVID, and decided, I was like, right, I want to play more cricket. I'd finally broken into my first Northerns trip, went to Cape Town, didn't play a game, but got to rub shoulders with Dale Steyn, who was coming back from injury, which was unbelievable experience to me.
Did you ever face him in the nets?
No, thankfully no. I was just bowling with him and seeing what he does with the ball, and just bugging him a bit. But some people, when they're just too good, you actually can't get what they're saying.
I've always said that about certain people. Like I've always said, Avery de Villiers would be a terrible coach because there's no way he's going to be able to tell people, listen, just do this. And people are like, dude, I can't do that.
Yeah, so
like,
that was,
understand,
yeah,
I can't do that.
that was the thing. He was coming back from injury and he was working away with these beautiful away swingers, and then I was like, yeah, but what happens if a guy is very dominant to the offside and likes to give himself space and like, can hit you over the offside? He said, no, all I do is I just slightly twist the seam, go 3/4, and I snap my wrist and it just jags back. So I was like, yeah, I get the simpleness of that, yeah. But I was just like, but now how am I meant to start learning that?
Yeah, exactly.
But again, it's someone that's learned his craft over so many years, and that he knows how that delivery comes out. He knows how to move his action and his body to deliver that ball. And now it's weird that I can actually understand what he was saying. But back then, I was just like, I have no idea what you're saying.
Well, I mean, it's an interesting, cause, I mean, especially your sort of time. I mean, these days, kids are 10 years old, playing cutters and learning how to knuckleballs. I mean, when I was in school, you would go across seam or you'd hold the seam up. That was the full extent of your sort of the variations. And you'd have a slow ball, which would usually be a cutter because it was easy. I mean, it's such an interesting last sort of 10 years in terms of how the bowling's had to change so much with variations because it's becoming such a strong batting game. So it must be an interesting sort of thing, like as you sort of growing up, you've got some of the older bowlers who are also having now to change their older sort of ways, because you can't just go and bowl 6 stock deliveries and maybe an outswinger type of thing, and it is getting far more complicated in terms of the skill set you have to have. This episode of the Forever Sports Podcast is brought to you by BitDefender. To protect yourself from cyber attacks, protect your browsing and personal information, and so much more, get BitDefender. Use the link in the description to get your copy of BitDefender and protect yourself today. As a bowler. But, so this is our COVID.
Yes.
So, did you finish third year Tux, or did you?
Yeah, so it went on to online, and during the April time, I moved to Ireland, or flew over to
So did you finish while you were actually in Ireland?
Yeah, so I finished my exams while I was there. So it was actually, it's crazy how things just work, like the timings wise of how things happen. And I moved over, just flew over. I was literally going to play the summer with the family, stay with the family in a house. And I was like, oh,
so
this is great.
Family in Ireland?
No, just a club family. Random family took me in and was like, great. Boarded up basically. And I was like, somehow again, land on my feet in a massive house in a lovely area in Dublin, and just enjoyed myself and started training with the national side and playing club cricket. And there was no games at the time because it was COVID, so it was just training with the national side and training with the club.
Yeah.
And then 4 weeks go by, and they announced that there's a tour to England in July. It's like, okay, cool, this is cool. We're training away, and I get a phone call saying, listen, we want you to come on the trip. We're taking 25 people, it's COVID, so we need to have all the backups there.
Of course,
we really want you there. So I was like, Jesus, this is unbelievable. I've just come over here to play a bit of club cricket and like just grow my game.
Yeah, so in your mind, were you still thinking, I'm going to go back to SA?
100%. I was trying to do the double summer, basically. That's what I was thinking. And then got called up into the national squad, and I was like, oh, this is perfect, I'm a youngster.
Was there ever a time where you thought maybe I shouldn't take up the call up?
No, it's weird. I think it's just like you have an opportunity to play international cricket.
So you're like,
so it's like, I wasn't picked to play in the team, so therefore I'm not ineligible for anything else. So it's like, well, I can go and be in a squad, and then if nothing happens, I can go back to South Africa in the summer and still play.
And I suppose it raises your profile. If you suddenly named in a squad, for example, then people
you still want to try. Ideally, is you want to play at the highest level the whole time.
Yeah.
So that was my main thing was, okay, cool, let's go to Southampton. Let's spend 3 weeks in a bubble, and let's learn and train and see where we get. And then we played a warm-up game, and again, I got maybe 50 or 60 yard, and I was hitting the ball really nicely, and again I got like a 2 for a 3 for. And 2 days of training, then the Ireland team's going to play England A in a warm-up game. I wasn't a part of it. Sitting on the balcony, watching the game, going, fair enough, this is my job, I've come here. This is great. I've come to learn and I'm growing and I'm training out here. This is amazing. Watch the lads play. And they didn't do amazingly, but it was a decent game. And at the end of it, game done, 3 days' time is the first ODI. We're training away. And the night of the first ODI, Andy Balbirnie knocked on my door and was like, listen, by the way, we're going with you. You're playing tomorrow. You're making your debut. And I was just like, oh my goodness, like how has this happened? Because not being in the warm-up game, I was like, right, I'm not in the fold.
Yeah, exactly.
I didn't expect to be in the fold.
Yeah. If it was ever going to be A game, you're going to play. It would have been.
I would play the A game, and then if I do well, okay, cool, you might play the first game, But so whatever it may be, somehow that happened, and I managed to play the first game, made my debut, and did nicely in that series. And I kind of, from then on, it cemented me staying in Ireland and living in Ireland. I think it's a weird...
was it, at the end of that series, did you decide, right, now this is going to be my life, basically?
In a way, I didn't really understand it then or know, but I was just like, oh, I'm playing international cricket, this is great. In my mind, I was like, oh, let's go home for Decembers and Januaries, and, I'll just do this, and my girlfriend is still living in South Africa, so I was like, I can just do this, because with this trip, and there's no many trips, I'll just go home. And then obviously I signed a national contract, and they said, listen, by the way, no, you can't go anywhere.
Yeah.
You need to train with us, you need to gym with us, you need to be with us. We need the doctors and the physios and the S&C to look after you. So you can go to South Africa if you want for 10 days, 2 weeks for holiday. But that's all we can give you, because that's what it is. And then from then on, it just left of tour after tour and A trips. And I still felt like I wasn't fully cemented in the team. We had a few more trips. I went on a few A trips. And then I'd say only in the last maybe year or two, I felt like I found my feet in international cricket and really cemented myself down into the Irish squad. But on my journey, there's a lot of people that leave South Africa and they badmouth South Africa and they badmouth the system and they badmouth all the people and they've been wronged and hard done by. And I'm sure there are people like that because of the amount of talent there is in South Africa. Yeah. But at the end of the day, it is what it is. It's professional sport. And I had an opportunity to go and play at the highest level. And I have nothing bad to say. And I have great relationships with the Lions. I have great relationships with the Titans too. I go back there all the time. I've been training at the Lions now and at the Wanderers. So and I love South Africa, and it's a place that it's so fond in my heart. So I don't understand how people can have a negative connotation or can badmouth leaving somewhere for another place. But in my aspect, in my point of view, I made a decision to further my career.
I suppose you had quite an interesting transition because it wasn't the case that you weren't making it here. I mean, you were still so young at the time. Yeah. It wasn't, you're 23, 24, still can't quite crack a Titan side. I suppose it was one of those things where just the stars kind of aligned. You went over for what you thought was going to be a summer, and next thing you know, you're playing international cricket, and then all of a sudden you've just gone in that direction. So chat to us about cricket in Ireland, because now you're coming from St. Peter's, very good prep school in Johannesburg, going to St. Stadions, one of the best cricket schools in the country, then going to a Tux, for example. So, I mean, you've basically been in elite cricket environments throughout your life. Now you go over to Ireland. What's the setup like? I mean, I know you play domestic cricket and there's club cricket, but what are the differences? I mean, it must be a much smaller pool of people and stuff like that.
100%. I think it was because I'd been through the elite of the elite and the facilities and the coaching has always been top. I just thought wherever I'd go, it'd be the same. And it wasn't the case. Ireland are a few years behind in a lot of facets and facilities and coaching and stuff like that. But there's a massive love for cricket, and the community is quite small but very tight knit. So you know everyone in cricketing circles in Ireland. Like you can tell me what club, and I'll be like, oh, I know exactly where that is, or I know, oh, that's the coach, or there's a player that plays there, or oh, no, this or that. So it is completely different. The facilities aren't as good, and the weather does play a massive part in it, that's for sure.
Lots of indoor facilities.
100%, yeah. And that's why I've come to South Africa to train for 10 days, just to get on grass, just to get my body prepped again for a busy winter. So there's 4 domestic sides that play against each other in red ball, white and white ball. So 4-day games, 1-day games, and T20s. So the basic setup is that you'll play red ball separate, and then you'll do on a weekend you'll play a Friday and a Saturday. So you'll play a T20 on a Friday afternoon and a 1-day on the Saturday. So that's mainly how it works. Or sometimes I shift them to midweeks to allow guys to still be able to play club cricket. And
in terms of those squads, I mean, there's only 4 of them. Does the federation itself almost kind of try to allocate to the players, or is it a bidding situation? Is it a contract system?
So there's no domestic contracts. It's just you do get a match fee to play. So the national guys will be, I wouldn't say divvied out fairly, but there's about 15 of the 25 contracted guys are from Dublin. So Leinster Rugby is the best.
Yeah.
It has the best players. So a few of us have been shifted to Munster, to the Northern Knights.
Where are you at the moment?
I'm at Munster.
Okay.
So I've been there for 3 years now. It's my 3rd season there. And there's 3 other national players with me.
And did you have any say in that, or did they just say...
No, you sign your contract and they tell you where to go.
Okay.
So Yeah,
You're lucky Joyce in the right way.
So we still train in Dublin though, which is a great thing. So if you're a national contracted, you still train with everyone in Dublin.
Still based there?
I'm still based there. I just travel full games, which is a 3-hour drive.
So you ever really train with the team? Was it kind of you rock up on the day? Hi, I'm
No. So we have Dublin trainings.
Captain,
We have Dublin trainings and we have Cork trainings too,
okay.
Which would be the day before a game. So you can go in there and hit balls and stuff like that too. So there are camps or allocated training sessions. But yeah, so that's there. So it might be 3 international guys down in Munster, 4 up in Breedy in the northwest, and then the Knights, the Belfast team, have their own guys that are from there anyway, so it works out perfectly.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then, now, I mean, obviously Ireland's a very different sort of set to everywhere else. Now, obviously, you were talking a bit before going on here about the different franchises. Now, cricket is just franchise. I mean, you'd be based just flying around the world. What was your first sort of franchise gig after you started sort of playing? Because obviously now you burst into the scene, you do well against England, good team to do well again. Yeah. But obviously then during COVID, not a lot of the leagues were happening and stuff like that. So what was your first sort of your first franchise gig?
So my first franchise gig was post the Dubai T20 World Cup, which was 2021, I think.
Yes, where you did the hat trick in that.
Yes,
yeah. 4 in a row actually.
Yeah,
so against the Netherlands.
Yeah, so I played that, and during that there was the draft for the Abu Dhabi T10, and I got picked up in that, and that was my first league experience. It was around about November of that year, so it was great. I was really looking forward to it. Went there to a team, kind of again how stars aligned, a team that wasn't the strongest, didn't have the best makeup. It was a new team, so they didn't have the best picks in drafts. So I managed to get drafted into that, and because of that, I managed to bowl a lot. And I did nicely. So it was like, if you play in a really good team, it's great, you can win the tournament.
But your opportunities are limited.
Yeah, exactly. You're in for 2 games, and if you don't do well, you're out.
Yeah.
And then you're sitting on the bench, and then great, cool, you might get a little bit more money. But again, when you're first starting, it's not about the money. It's about increasing your stocks as a player and growing your brand. So luckily, that team didn't, well, not luckily, but it catch-22. The team wasn't doing that well, but it allowed me to bowl more and be exposed to more. So there's some games where I did really badly, but then out of the 8 games, 3 or 4 of them I did nicely. So then it's like, okay, well actually he's pretty good. We can go with him again. And then my next league was the Bangladesh league.
And was that your first feel like were you kind of like in the big leagues type of thing? Because especially these days, it's starting to get a bit of momentum.
Yeah. So the first year, I didn't really think as much as I'm in the big leagues. I still don't think I'm in the big leagues. I'm not.
I suppose the big leagues being sort of your BBLs, IPLs,
yes.
SA20, your CPLs,
yeah.
Now Lanka Premier League.
Yeah. So last year was the first year
last
year was the first year during the Bangladesh Premier League when I was there. I got a call saying, "Listen, there's a guy's injured in the SA20. Can you make it?" So it's like, then it's like, okay. Now you're knocking on the door of the leagues where you want it, like the big leagues, like you're saying. So there's definitely tiers to the circuit. You have like I was chatting before air. We talked about like America, the US Opens, the minor leagues before the major league, and you have those small tournaments, and those would be like the bottom of the circuit. And then you get high up like the BPLs, the T10s, those type of things, and then you get high up than that. Then it's the big bashes, the SA20s, those things. Then you get like the IPL of the pinnacle. So I think that's where, if you're doing well on the lower ones, you can slowly start chipping away, getting into the top ones, And I think that's where I'm hoping to try get to in the next couple of years.
Yeah, I mean, speaking of the SA20, so I think you did put your name into the auction. How does that work in terms of putting your name in and your name coming up on the day? Is it guaranteed your name comes up on the day type of thing? Do you kind of just register interest and then teams almost basically go through the list and say, listen, we want these guys to come up during the day? Do you have any idea how the auction process works? Or do you just throw your name in there and hope
quite
hope
honestly,
you see your name?
I don't put my name in. My agent does it all for me. So he will just push. My agent will just put me in every league.
Anything and everything.
Yeah, exactly. Some agents won't because they'll be more limited and be like, okay, my player only wants these leagues, so then I'll only go in these leagues. But basically, I know to register, anyone can basically register if you're playing a high level of cricket, and then they sieve the list, and they keep filtering down, and then players of interest in the draft, your name may come up, may not come up, just because of people registering interest. So that's my understanding of all the teams will have 6 options, because obviously you have all the different teams and seeing who can take who. So they'll have different options, and then you could be a plan D, if that makes sense, of because I'm an all-rounder, you know what I mean? Let's just say they're looking for Dwayne Pretorius, Ben Stokes, and Odin Smith, you know, and then they go, okay, well, we'll put Curtis as our number 4 or 5 on the list. So then if someone else picks Dwayne Pretorius, or if it just goes that way down,
and then
exactly. So then it's like, okay, your Ben Stokes has been picked up by them, you know, Odin Smith's been picked up by them. Okay, well, our next in line is X.
Yeah, and I mean, from like a base pass point of view, are you very happy with I suppose when it comes to these leagues, you basically just want to play.
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
Some players will obviously cap their price and say, right, I'm not coming for anything less than £1.5 million for the month.
Yeah.
And some players are just like, just take me. I just want to play.
So I think a lot of players like that, some of them, if you do get bigger, like to move families and contracts and things like that, it has to be worth their while, you know. But for me, I'm willing to take almost next to nothing because I know it can grow my brand and grow my image. And there's other leagues where I won't. There's other leagues where I can go to say to them, well, listen, I'm not going to grow my brand if I play here, but I will come here for this amount of money.
Yeah.
And then it's like, okay, cool. Like there's a bit of a catch-22, and that's me at my lower level. And then they're the same thing. Like Josh Butler's not going to come here for less than, I don't know,
millions,
£50,000, because to him, on his £2 million contract a year, he needs to make more than £50,000 to make it worth his while.
Yeah.
To be away from his family, especially when you have like the IPL where guys are getting millions.
Yeah.
You know, then you put in that perspective, and same with Bangladesh and stuff like that. Like, people forget the human element. You're away for 2 months in a foreign country, eating hotel food, and they make it. The IPL, they do an amazing job of making it as amazing as they can with golf simulators. Guys can go to different golf courses, and they shut down the golf courses and that stuff. But it's a tough slog, you know. It's for those guys that go there, and that's why they get paid so well. It's because they've got to be put through that too. And I know it sounds like kind of playing your violin and saying, it's tough. But again, like guys go away for work for 5 days, 6 days, and at the end of it, they go, oh, geez, I hated that. I just want to be home. Yeah. But guys have to go for 2 months at a time. So it is different. Yeah,
right. So you've played Dubai and Bangladesh.
Yeah.
We also from a franchise point of view, but then
I was in Canada.
Okay. Really?
I played GT20. Yeah. It actually is a really good competition. Had really good guys.
I'm surprised they have like enough days with no rain to be able to play cricket.
I know. I went to Toronto and I had no expectations. So I finished the test match against Zimbabwe. 2 days later, my agent phones me and says, "Listen, can you get on the plane tomorrow morning?" He's like, "It may happen or it may not. I've booked your ticket, but we're just waiting for the confirmation." So I was like, "Okay, I'll be ready." So Tuesday morning, 9 o'clock, I hear nothing. 10 o'clock, hear nothing, and my flight's at like 1. Thankfully, I live quite close to the airport. 11 o'clock comes around, and I'm like, "This is cutting it fine now." I was like 11:15. If I hear nothing, I'm done. At like 11:10, he rings me and says, "Pack your bags. Make sure your bags are packed already. Get to the airport right now. We're going." Got to Canada, and I was like, "Oh, okay, cool. I'm not sure what to expect here." Toronto's an amazing city, and the players there were quality. I had like Marcus Stoinis, Sunil Narayan, David Warner, Usman Khawaja.
But you have to have those sort of marquee players
100%,
to make the tournament relevant.
And because it's not like the IPL, the SA20, where it's only 4 overseas, they play 6. Or they play 4 overseas internationals and then 3 associates. So you basically have a full international 11 with 2 or 3 Canada guys. So if you split the Canada playing 11 between all the teams, like it's like Mohamed Nabi, all these guys are all there playing. So you're facing an international lineup the whole time. Bowlers and batters, top 5 or 6. So the standard was really good. Pity the wickets weren't really good there. It kind of made a bit of a dampener on it. But yeah, it was a really cool experience to me, and definitely would go back because Toronto was amazing.
Interesting. I mean, I suppose you can't say you weren't sitting in high school going, one day I want to be playing cricket in Canada.
I know, exactly. Yeah, I've got to go see the Niagara Falls, so I was like, this is what a trip.
Yeah, I suppose that's also the cool thing. And especially now, I mean, welcome to the Forever Sports podcast. To gain more exclusive content with our podcast guests, make sure you join the Forever Sports Members Club. We'll be doing a Q&A session with every single one of our guests, which is only made exclusively available for our members. Click on the link in the description to join the club now and gain access to a number of perks, benefits, and exclusive content. Playing for Ireland was quite an interesting one because you don't often play your top nations all the time. A lot of series against obviously Bangladesh, and we play against Netherlands probably quite a lot, and a lot of stuff against them. But so you start playing for Ireland, what's it like in terms of? I mean, you've got a very similar squad. I mean, you look at South Africa and some teams, and they've got a very different white ball and red ball squad. You guys, I suppose, you just have one big contracted group, and you guys put in place play every different format.
Yeah, pretty much. I think it's because we don't play that much red ball cricket. Then the pickings or like the amount of players you can pick from is not like a million people from South Africa. You know.
Do you think you guys will start playing more Test cricket?
I think we're meant to have about six tests lined up for this year in the tour program. So I can't actually tell you who they are because it's not made public. But 2 in the subcontinent. Which would be really cool. We've been to the subcontinent already before, playing Bangladesh and Sri Lanka, which was really cool experience. But yeah, so the core 11 basically doesn't really change, and I think that's kind of a concerted decision between us, because when you're playing international cricket, you are international cricket ready, and when you're not playing international cricket, you're not international cricket ready, and so it's easier to pick guys from the ODI team to play Test cricket because of we're playing the whole time, and guys in the pro will understand that too. Is like if you're not match fit, you can see it on the TV, you know, and like that's the difference. It's just been that extra bit of sharpness as a batter or a bowler.
Yeah, it must be quite difficult as you're going to Test. I mean, for example, South Africa goes over to India, they'll play 1 or 2 warm games and stuff like that. When you guys have a Test tour, I don't think you guys usually play more than 1 or 2 tests at a time. So, and let alone warm-up games.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's quite hectic to go from a white ball series or whatever, and you basically arrive, and the first time you're out in the middle with your red balls, day 1 on the Test type of thing.
Yeah, pretty. Well, it's not far off. I think we normally have about 3 or 4 days prep.
Yeah.
So it's not much.
But it'll just be middle sessions, I suppose. No practice games or anything.
No practice games. Yeah. No. So that does change the dynamics a bit too. And it is quite hard. I find it harder as a batter. Because like the tempo of the game, and you get so used to if you face 2 or 3 dots, you're like, I need to put the pressure on the bowler. Whereas like red ball cricket, it's just okay. You've bowled 3 good balls. You've bowled 3 good overs. Good for you. Yeah. I'm gonna batch it to the end of the day.
So basically, I just go full Baz ball. There's a predominantly white ball side. Just go out there and.
That is true, but we don't. Yeah, like it's. I think we pick the white ball side, but everyone just plays red ball cricket. The only one I can really say that, or 2 guys that really do just bat the way they normally do, is Paul Sterling and Lorcan Tucker.
I don't think Paul Sterling's ever changing that.
No, and I think that's when he's at his best too. He has a really good defence, but when he's putting bowlers under pressure, he's got amazing hands. So he was actually here in South Africa for a week, 10 days with the Test captain Andy Balbirnie training at the Wanderers too. So they decided to put a bit of extra work in for the upcoming summer and our winter away, and we've got to hopefully qualify for the ODI World Cup in 2027. That's in South Africa.
Oh, you guys qualify for the
No, sadly not. Champions Trophy is top 8, I believe.
Okay,
so no, we didn't crack the nod for that. But we 2026 India T20 World Cup, we're already qualified for that. So it's quite nice. That's going to be February 2026. So we kind of trying a few things, experimenting a few things against South Africa. We tinkered with our lineup a little bit, and we're going to keep doing that for the next little bit here, and just try expose a few new guys to international cricket and see exactly how they cope and how we get on.
Well, I think in the last few years we started to see more Irish cricketers become household names. I mean, like Josh Little, for example, that spell you had against England, all of a sudden he's been picked up in some of the bigger leagues, stuff like that. So it's cool to see that it's now becoming. If you go back to that Kevin O'Brien innings when they beat England all those years ago, which really put Irish cricket on the map. These days, I think no one sort of looks at it as it's just sort of second tier nation. But you speak about the South African series. Now that must have been the first time playing against South Africa, when you now suddenly go and play against the side that you thought one day. Do you and what is your reaction? What has the reaction been when you did switch? Has there been animosity from a sort of South African perspective? Are people quite sort of, because especially South Africa, when I've sort of seen a lot of fans. If you go overseas, for example, and you do badly, everyone's like, oh, you see, you couldn't cut it. But if you start doing well, then it's like sort of almost a betrayal. What was sort of the reaction from the general public that you got when you started playing for Ireland and stuff? And then what was it like when you played against South Africa?
It's been very good the whole time. I think, like I said, it's the way you leave, if that makes sense. If you're leaving to further yourself, to further your career, and there's no bad blood, then I think people in South Africa understand that. It's like my biggest thing is like, if you're doing a job and you get another offer from another company
exactly.
to pay you more money for the same job, would you take it? And then it goes, people go, yes, I would.
Yeah.
And then it's like, okay, well, I didn't have a job.
Yeah.
And I got offered this job. And I took this job. You know, so when you look at it like that, it changes perspective. But it was really cool. Different to play against guys against Africa, especially guys when I was 15, 16, like watching Quinny play, and then all of a sudden you're playing against him and you're watching him bat. And
a couple of chirps while you're batting?
No, none at all. I thought I would get a bit of stick. I got a bit more stick this last trip.
I suppose because now you're playing against guys you play with at school.
Yes,
as well.
100%. Yeah. So Ryan, Vian, and stuff like that. So there was a bit more chirp there, but it's all lighthearted and it's funny. Played golf with them too, so it's really good. But yeah, so that was the first time when I played South Africa in Ireland. KG played and a few other guys, but Quinton Cox scored 100 and I was just standing there and the wicket was a bit slow and nibbly and he just hit a few drives and I was just standing there at mid wicket going, this is big boy stuff. Yeah, this is serious. So that was really cool. But yeah, we've actually had a pretty good record against South Africa in general. Beating them in 2 ODIs and 1 or 2 T20s out of like maybe 6 or 8 on each side. So it's nothing terrible, but nothing amazing. But still, we're not getting absolutely hammered.
Yeah, I think the main thing is you're becoming a side where you can't afford to send the experiment. I mean, back in the day, especially T20s for South Africa, they used to use that to blood the new players. I think these days, we're far more conscious of the fact that we can't. Being beat by Afghanistan and the likes also. So it's quite cool to see how the sort of tier 2 nations are starting to really compete. I mean, Afghanistan getting to semi-finals of the World Cup and stuff like that. I suppose, in terms of animosity, I suppose a lot of these guys, especially even the international players, it must be quite an interesting sort of cricket fraternity because you're playing against these guys, but then a week later you'll be in the same dugout in some franchise tournament around there. So I suppose you must meet quite a lot of the players you actually end up playing against.
Yeah, definitely. It is a bit tricky because you do have to watch your P's and Q's because it's not like old school back in the day where you can spray someone or have a full go.
Exactly.
Because the next week you actually can be their teammates, and a lot of guys have white line fever, so a lot of guys understand that. Like in the heat of the moment, you can have a discussion or a disagreement, and then afterwards it's cool, no worries. But like you say, the tier 2 nations in inverted commas, I think the professionalism and the amount of money that's gone into just in general, like facilities, conditioning, people's, concerted effort to be a professional. Like Afghanistan now, T20 World Cup in India, I wouldn't be surprised if they make a semi-final again.
Yeah.
Because if you look at, they have 20 guys playing in the IPL, or thereabouts, so you have 25 of them playing franchise cricket all year round. Like they're only going to get good. If they look at their, now they used to just be Rashid Khan, one spinner. They've got 4 mystery spinners now. And they have guys that bowl 145 and swing the ball. So now it's like, okay, well, they've got a full array of players now to pick from.
You mentioned that, that 145, people always talk about the fact that sometimes some of the other teams where they just don't have those bowlers who can get to that sort of pace. They don't necessarily have those batsmen who can go get the biggest scores. Have you, within sort of an island setup, is that sort of that big, is there quite a lot of weight in terms of, you kind of quite cognizant of the fact that you might not have the same power game or stuff like that, and that, you need to find other ways of sort of finding that middle ground to start catching up to some of the other nations. Because like South Africa can put out a Nanje Burger, Anton Nakia and KJ Bada, and the slowest bowler will be hitting 146, 147. There's not a lot of Irish bowlers that are going to hit 140s, for example. Yeah,
definitely. I think speed, there's no substitute for speed.
Yeah.
And I think that's what you can see with the way England are picking up their test sides now too. Like eventually pushing Jimmy out and saying, listen, thank you.
Yeah.
You've had your time. It's time for you to retire. And picking guys on attributes. Like picking Josh Hull, a 6'4", 20-year-old that has a pretty average county record, but because his left arm swings the ball back and bowls 140, like 140 and 130, you can have as much skill as you want, and you can be effective. But someone at 140, it's just a different game.
Yeah,
it's just you have to be so much sharper.
Where are you operating around these days?
a mild 130.
130.
Yeah, it's nothing.
I mean. Is the plans trying? I mean, how easy is it to get quicker? Some people don't understand that. For example, KG slowed down and then sort of sped up, and Lungi Ngidi was very quick when he came and sort of slowed down. How difficult is it to find going from 130 to becoming a 140 bowler? Is it one of those things where you just either have it or you don't?
Yeah, that's as simple as that. You either have it or you don't. You can do things in your action, in the way you train, but it's the same trend. If you haven't played international cricket before, you'll play. And because the intensity and the load and the travel is so heavy, your speeds will drop. Because you can go from playing domestic cricket where you play 25 games a year you know, in a space of 8 months. Now you're playing 60 games a year, all year round. There's no off, you know. So when I'm traveling, the gyms aren't as good, you know, or you're too tired because you're training 4 times, you're training every day, so you can't actually get the amount of lifts you need to get in. So it's just the same thing as, and South Africa have done it really well now, is that you see Marco Jansen coming back after missing a series.
Yeah,
rested
as well. Also had 2-3 months off. Yeah,
KG's been away. It's like because these guys need these breaks because they're playing so much cricket and bowling, and like you can only bowl a certain amount of balls at a certain speed, and then you keep doing it, you're going to get tired and you're going to drop your speeds, and that's just how it is. So yeah, to be honest, the same thing is like if you bowl 130 or 134, it's not much of a difference, you know, in my opinion. So for me, chasing that extra 4Ks is not really that much beneficial for me. I'd rather just work on my skill. Whereas the guy that bowls 135, it's beneficial for him to chase those 5Ks.
Yeah.
Because 135 to 140, it's the same difference in 4 or 5Ks, but because it's even faster, it makes a big difference.
And similarly, I suppose it must be an interesting thing if you are a South African batsman, for example. You know, you're facing these guys in the net, so you're facing that sort of pace. How do you prepare for that when you play against some of these teams where you're going to be playing against guys who are bowling faster than the guys you're playing with, for example, can? How do you sort of prepare for that? I mean, can you? What sort of things do you try and do?
Well, we have the coaches that stick, have the doggers, and they can throw 140, 145. So
that must be quite revolutionary actually these days.
It is, yeah, and it saves our bowlers. Our bowlers don't bowl to us that much anymore because you nowadays it's all about loads. This is the new key word is loads. How many overs must you bowl? Can you bowl? And how can it fit in? So in a working week to play, like build up for a test match is different to an ODI, which is different to a T20. T20 you're only bowling about 20 overs a week. You know, an ODI you're bowling about 50 overs a week. Test matches you want to be close to 80 overs a week. It just depends how many you can get into, because you need to do 2 or 3 spells in a test match prep.
Now, as an all-rounder, how do you balance your batting and your bowling from a practice point of view?
Yeah, it gets really tricky, especially different formats. I taper my load slightly less than out and out seamer, so I wouldn't get to the same numbers that they would get to. So let's say if their ideal mark is 20 in a week, I might do 16. And I just try to play around with that too. And then I prioritize my batting, and I bat first, and then I bowl afterwards. But we have 3 hours of training sessions, so it just means that I'm busy for the whole 3 hours. Whereas if you're just a bowler or just a batter, you have your hour hit, and then you can go off, put your slops on, and head home.
Right, and speaking about the format stuff like that, so I think you previously so Test cricket is still the pinnacle for you. Was that probably the biggest moment in your career when you made your Test debut, and then when you made that Test 100? I mean, that must be that's childhood dream stuff.
Yeah, Test debut was really, really cool. Played in hot Dhaka, Bangladesh, where the South African lads have just been, and it is a tough slog. And then went to beautiful Sri Lanka. Never been before, and honestly, Galle is one of the most prettiest places I've ever been. White sand beaches, beautiful place, great food. Get there, first test. We had played a full trip in Bangladesh, and we had got given 3 days off. So a few of us booked a golf holiday in Sri Lanka and played golf for 2 or 3 days and just got away from cricket. Came back, started training, and we got hammered the first test. It was 40 degrees. The left arm spinner, Jai Surya, is a wizard, especially in Sri Lanka, and just ripped through us, and before we knew it, the game was over. And then second test, we won the toss, and makes a massive difference. I think nowadays international cricket tosses are making a bigger difference because 6 years ago, there was this massive a push for flat tracks and high scores, you know, and then it got too one-sided because whoever scored more, like whoever batted first and smashed all the runs, no one could chase it. So then now there's been this push for results. So now all of a sudden, guys are preparing wickets for results, and now there's less demerit points for a bad wicket because, oh no, the game's finished in 2 or 3 days. This is exciting. Whereas if it goes for 5 days, you saw what England said in Pakistan. This is boring. And people slam it. So, so second test, had my girlfriend was there for the first test, and she just left. So I did give her a bit of stick, saying that like you mustn't come on tour again because when you leave, I score some runs.
Things start to work.
It's something I never dreamed of, to be honest. I never thought of to do that. I've been a massive person of like team success is more important than me. And to have.
Well, if you're scoring hundreds, helps the team quite a lot.
No, I know, I do get that, and it was really cool. And Yeah, it was an amazing feeling and something I look back on now with immense pride, but also it changes your mindset completely. Now I'm looking for 2 and 3.
Yeah.
Whereas before I was just like, I'm just going to go bat. So I put a lot more pressure on myself now when it comes to batting, because
That's an interesting point. When you walk out as a test batsman, for example, are you walking out with a number in mind sometimes, or do you go for the situation? Are you walking out there thinking, listen, I need to be out here 80, 100 runs is what the team needs, or I need to be out for a couple of hours, especially in test matches, which is far more, the situation changes all the time. I mean, ODI T20s, they do to a certain degree, but in a T20, for example, you'll go out saying, right, guys, 150, 160 par, that's where we need to be. But test cricket, everything changes so quickly.
Yeah, so test cricket's batting sessions. So when I'm going out there first, I'm looking at who's the bowler, how they're trying to get me out, what's their biggest strength. Field makes a bit of sense if they've changed the field, but normally if you bat in the top 5, it's going to be the same thing: 3 slips a gully.
So it's quite like sort of survival mode.
Yeah, I wouldn't say survival mode, but it is trying to just make sure that you're moving sharp enough and defending your zones. And then obviously I'll have a box of an area where I will leave or defend. And then if the conditions are really favourable for bowling, my box will be big. It will be from middle stump to 6th stump, 7th stump.
And you basically say,
yeah.
There's not much scoring zones. We're not.
Yeah,
we're
I'm
not
going to wait for you to bowl short, or I'm going to wait for you to bowl my legs, and that's it.
And you're not even counting dot balls at that stage. You're just saying, listen, until it's in my scoring zone.
I'm thinking of how many balls to the end of the over.
Okay.
So how many do you mean? That's it.
Yeah.
3 balls. That's all I got to get through. 3 balls, especially if it's really tough. That's all I'm worried about, because naturally you'll score runs. Like naturally, I might even hit 1 or 2 balls in that zone, just because naturally I'll just hit them. If that makes sense. It's just what it feels like. So yeah, I'm looking at trying to make sure my feet are moving, my head's in a good position, and counteracting what they're trying to do.
And it's an interesting thing. I mean, you always tell kids, for example, get yourself in and stuff like that. Are there moments, even at that sort of level, where you'll hit a shot something and suddenly feel, listen, I'm actually really in here. Like, I'm seeing a bit of a beach ball. This is actually really comfortable.
Yeah, it is. Especially, I wouldn't even say in an innings. Sometimes it's just like a period of time where you're hitting the ball really nicely.
And you walk out, they're going,
yeah.
What you want, I'm taking you.
But sometimes it's trickier because you're feeling so good, you think you can hit balls that aren't there, and that's when you get out. So, for example, against South Africa in this last series, I was hitting the ball the best I've hit them. Like I'm getting in great positions, and I was so frustrated at the end of the series because I should be scoring loads of runs because I'm hitting the ball so nicely. And there's times where you're not hitting the ball nicely and you score runs is because mentally you choose to be so precise in decision making, whereas when you're hitting the ball very nicely, you got, oh jeez, you get giddy. And you're like, I'm going to hit you for 4 fours.
I'll take you.
Yeah, exactly. and then all of a sudden it's kind of back of length and hit one straight up, and that's you out for the day. So yeah, no, there's definitely sometimes I think there's 1 or 2 shots that you hit when you're batting, and if you hit those shots, they're in good touch.
Yeah. So just before we wrap up, I want to talk about World Cups, because obviously this is like a whole, you go on series and stuff like that, but the World Cup, that's the big stages. That's when suddenly you'll play against India and play against Australia a few days later and stuff like that. Obviously had your 4 and 4, which is obviously a big moment, stuff like that. But just try and speak us through an experience of a World Cup where you are now, seeing Virat Kohli's around and Steve Smith, stuff like that. You've been playing against all these sort of top teams. Obviously, as a team, you want to go well, but is this also a time where you're sitting there going, listen, if I ever want to sort of show people how good I am, like these are the tournaments. You go and have a couple of good knocks against India, Australia, New Zealand. You're not just good within the Irish system, you're a good player in the international system type of thing.
Yeah, I think it's tricky. I think we always play the top nations in series and stuff like that, but the World Cup, there's so much pressure, and we actually position ourselves as underdogs on purpose. And the people always...
Please do underestimate us, basically.
Yeah, and we can see it, and it happens sometimes, but now there's times where we don't, because we play everyone so much now. It's not just our batters want to have a bat, so we're going to bat first. Yeah. Now it's like, okay, the conditions are this, we're going to do this. So we look into World Cups. It's an amazing time because things happen so quickly.
Yeah. Do you guys focus on World Cups? Do you basically sort of... obviously you have series stuff in between there, but...
Our series are all built up for World Cups.
So that's so from now, as you said, now in India in a few years' time, that's now the next 20
that's our next...
is the next big
thing.
So
what we do in each series will be towards that. So stats, and we love stats, but and like all like the data stuff, but we looked at the Caribbean, the US, how teams would go in the CPL in terms of scoring runs, and we saw that the new ball was tough, middle overs, and back end is really easy.
Yeah.
So we decided for 14 months, 18 months, this is how we're going to play. Overs 7 to 15 are crucial. You cannot lose wickets. And once you get to that 15, you can pull the trigger.
Yeah.
And that's how we played for a while. And then we got to the States, and the wickets were completely different.
Yeah.
So it's like,
Yeah.
so like, I mean, you do all this stuff to see what the resources.
I don't think anybody prepared for what they saw in the States.
Exactly.
I think everyone's planning. I think all the analysts were going, "Are you sure this is the right thing?"
Yeah.
Going, "Hey guys,
So that was the crazy thing. So it was like go hard in the power play, and then consolidate between 6 and 10, and then from 10 onwards you go home strong because it's hard to defend there. And now obviously going to India, it's completely different. India's just go hard the whole time.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the IPL, I mean, you've got two people scoring now 250 years. So
yeah, I hope that they change that impact sub, because it just changes. It's just 7 batters versus 5 bowlers.
Yeah, it's childish. I think, and also just change the decks. Nobody wants to watch 500 runs in a T20.
Exactly. But again, it's because you have batters coming in at 7.
Yeah. And I suppose also the way the IPL is going these days is, you'll have bowlers, and if you're looking at a bowler and you're going, right, these two are pretty similar bowlers. Listen, this guy can also power hit, and the evolution of power hitting at the moment, and the bats.
Yeah.
People are not even middling things and it's sailing over. So the power hitting it's just childish at the moment.
Yeah, and I think India might change it because their players are actually getting hurt. Their all-rounders, Washington, Sundar, those type of guys aren't batting where they need a bat, because now it's like, well, Washington Sundar can bat 8 for us or 9 for us, and then we can put in, we can put in Hardik Pandya at 7, and it's like, well, geez, this is crazy now.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. Pandya, even like your Andre Russell, for example, people that came through as predominantly bowlers, and I mean, Andre Russell sometimes playing as a batsman these days. So it's quite an interesting way that similarly, for example, like in the IPL, it's all rounders are the premium.
Yeah.
It's not about having sort of one skill.
Yeah, I see. Like the last one, they weren't, because of the impact sub.
It takes
one all rounder away from it. Whereas now, if they go back to it, it's like, well, actually, you have to have 2 or 3 all rounders in your team, because you need guys that can bowl your overs and that can bat really well. Otherwise, you're going to be short. Where now, as you have an impact sub, it's like, okay, cool. Well, we'll just pick an opening batter and we'll sub him for a bowler.
Yeah.
Straight in, straight out, no all rounder.
Yeah, it's nice for the opening bat. You go out there, score an 80-yard, and they say, "Listen, we're going to impact you. Fantastic. I'm going to put my feet up. You guys can go and feel stuff like it." And
so I chatted to Josh a little about it, because he said it's so hard as a bowler.
Yes.
He's like, because you sit there, you watch the team bat, and then it's like, am I going to be the impact sub, or is it going to be him?
Yeah.
So it's like, at the drinks break, go warm up, and then it's like, as you go into field, we're impacting Josh, you're in. So he's like, it's so hard to prep for it, because you couldn't play, you can't play, you're not sure what's happening, and then all of a sudden it's like, right, you're opening your first over.
Must be quite an interesting thing for him to go to IPL and be able to bring that experience back and be able to sort of share the stories about how that sort of goes, because there's a lot of Irish cricket isn't in the IPL a very new concept. So I mean, how important is it, even like your, for example, to be able to share those experiences with other players coming up who, will only have played Ireland domestic cricket, and all of a sudden to go into the professional setup and stuff like that?
Yeah, it does make a massive difference. I think you get to a stage where you have to start passing on all the information you learn.
Because I also imagine, the professionalism. I mean, when you go play in the IPL, I mean, you're going to have, you got the best of the best coaches, and I mean, you're going to have your 4th assistant coach will have one some amazing international career. I mean, you look at some of the coaches there, and it's childish, and let alone the managers and the physio and stuff like that. So is it also like when you come back to the Ireland setup, you almost sit there saying, listen, this is how these I mean, we're in an elite situation, but these are the elite here, and you're making changes there so that you guys can try and replicate the best possible environment for the national team. Yeah,
for sure. I think also what you get a lot more player-to-player coaching or player-to-player feedback, if that makes sense. Because I can rub shoulders with whoever, and I can tell them what I'm working on, they can tell me what they're working on, or they can tell me what's worked for them in the last while, or what's worked for me, and then you can rub those, or past players the same thing, vice versa. So that's massive too, where I can speak to whoever's in my team, and say if Mark's Johnny's in my team, I say, well, like what you working on now recently, like what you've been doing, because you're an all rounder. With the ball, what you're trying to work on.
What I find is, it seems that cricketers generally are quite open about this is what I mean. Like there's always those videos of Imran Tahir, and like after the game, he's like with the three opposition spinners saying, this is how you do it and stuff like that. So is it quite like a general thing that you just generally share what you're doing and stuff?
I think so. Like, to be honest, unless like there's nothing that can replicate it anyway. You know what I mean? Like, I can share with you what I'm doing, but you may not be able to do it.
No, exactly. Yeah.
You know, so, and I think you want to play against the best the whole time.
Yeah.
So like whether I tell you or not, it doesn't make a difference. You're going to get better either way, or you're not going to get better.
Although it is interesting because there's a whole thing with Tristan Stubbs, and I think like a couple of the sprinters when he went to the IPL, you refused to bowl to him in the nets.
And I can
for the World, ahead of the World Cup.
And I understand that. Yeah. That's different. But you know what I mean. Let's just say, Kuldeep Yadav's talking to Shamsi.
Yeah.
And they will speak to each other, if that makes sense. He's not going to hold back. I don't think he'll hold back things, if that makes sense, because it doesn't really make a difference. Because it's going to take him. These things take time to learn and do. You know, like I can work on a slow ball and it'll take me 8 months for me to feel like, okay, I can bowl in a game, and then I might put it away for a year because it's not working, or it only works on a specific surface. Therefore, I only bowl on that surface.
Oh, it's interesting. I mean, I was watching the Women's World Cup. Soon Lewis came through as a leggy and then just stopped bowling for years, and then started bowling now as an offie, and basically just lost complete confidence in bowling leg spin type of thing.
Yeah, I think leg spin's a different breed though.
Yeah, you never bowl leg spin.
Just like if you bowl leg spin, you will yip up. Like, and it's whether you can get back into bowling or not.
No,
and that's the truth, because it's just there's so many moving parts and
it's a horrible sport. Yeah. No, and it just feels horrible as well if you ever try and bowl it. Before we wrap up, I had to ask you: are you aware that you have currently got, I think, the 7th most ODI innings without a duck?
No.
It's a very interesting stat when you are one of the highest people ever in terms of consecutive ODI innings without a duck.
Really?
Yeah. Not to put that out there or anything like that. I just wondered if you knew this.
Is that still going?
Yeah.
I'm trying to think.
Up to date for now. It's still there. You haven't got an ODI duck.
I've got a few. I've got 2 test ducks in the last 2 trips. So.
Did you get a pair?
No pair.
Okay,
no, thankfully.
Well, there we go.
No, I was very worried about that. No, but it's interesting. That's quite cool.
I think you need about 10 or so modes before you get to the most.
To the most 10 innings, right? I need to make sure I just can get a few inside edges and get through the other side.
Yeah, correct. And if they drop it, for example, and you run through and you came with your pad, just tell them it was a genuine drop.
Yeah, right. So basically, if I do get out for a duck in the next series, I'm going to blame you.
Correct.
Okay, cool.
We'll take full blame for it. Okay. However, if you didn't get the record,
yes,
then
you get the credit. You get the credit.
Yeah. So beers are either on me if you get a duck in the next 10 to 15, or beers on you if you don't get.
That's a fair deal for sure.
Right. Cool. Well, Chris, thank you very much, nice. And all the best for the upcoming summer stuff like that and World Cups. It's very, very cool. And as a South Africa, personally, I always like seeing the ex-South doing very well. So I think it's very cool to see you playing for South Ireland. But all the best, and thank you for your time.
Perfect. Thanks so much.